Gentrification, denotation. The process of renovating and improving housing or a district so that it conforms to middle-class taste. Gentrification connotation. White developers coming into economically depressed areas where poor blacks live, raising the prices under the guise of renovation so they can build apartments, breweries, cutesy boutique shops, and become the new hotspot to allow for wealthy white folks to kick out poor blacks and destroy historically black neighborhoods. Gentrification is a national phenomenon that's been around since integration. An aspect that hasn't been discussed in connection with gentrification, but is growing, is the role that climate change plays. As storms get progressively worse, the damage done to coastal towns will be greater, and as history has shown, the poor lose much more during natural disasters. This is where Wilmington, North Carolina comes into play. Quick review on Wilmington. It's got about 110,000 people. It's beautiful during mid-September through October. The beaches are amazing, and its racial background is one of the worst in the history of the entire United States, and that should be well known, but more than likely isn't. So now we have to take a quick exit to catch everyone up on what the school system left out of your textbook. At one point, the largest city in North Carolina, blacks during Reconstruction held over 30% of Wilmington's skilled craftsmen, including positions such as mechanics, carpenters, jewelers, watchmakers, painters, plasterers, plumbers, and many other roles. Black Republicans had combined with white populists to create a fusionist party that had control over the local government. So, while not living it up, blacks were doing quite well in Wilmington. Which meant the white supremacists couldn't let that stand. On November 10, 1898, after the Fusionist Party remained in power, after elections with clear voter suppression from white Democrats, white terrorist groups led by former Confederate soldiers violently overthrew the elected government, killed a still to this day untold number of blacks in Wilmington, and ran out the black middle class in the only successful coup in United States history. In addition to making national news, Wilmington has also made international news with its race relations. In 1971, a case came forward known as the Wilmington 10. After racial tensions were rising post Martin Luther King Jr.'s assassination in 1968, Wilmington decided in 1969 to close down Williston High School, the pride of Black Wilmington and the only black high school in the area. Students decided to boycott Wilmington High School in January of 1971 as a result. In February of 1971, a white-owned grocery was bombed. Blame went to a civil rights activist, a white anti-poverty woman, and 8 black male high school students who were protesting Williston's closure and were falsely accused and convicted. The case made headline news, so much so that when President Carter chastised the Soviet Union for political prisoners, the Soviet used the Wilmington 10 case as an example of political imprisonment in the USA. Literally this year, 2019, Wilmington made news after a teacher had 4th grade students play a slavery game in which students had to write down their slave names on the back of a playing card, and if they got in trouble, they would be sent back to the plantation to be a slave. Fun times. And these are just the major incidents that have occurred. We're not even going to get into the 2 statues that all black Wilmingtonians have to pass when they go downtown that honor Confederate soldiers who fought for the sole purpose of keeping black people in bondage and torture. We'll save that fun nugget for another time. All of this is to say, Wilmington has a trash history when it comes to race, one it often refuses to reckon with, which makes gentrification an easy way to scrub over a massive stain on the city's history. Add the racial history to the effect that climate change has had, and Wilmington has a very unique relationship with gentrification. An example of these 2 forces coming together was with the most recent storm, Hurricane Florence, and its effect on housing. Florence dropped 23 inches of rain in Wilmington in only a few days. This caused major damage to numerous apartment and housing complexes in the city. One of the most damaged complexes was Market North. Market North is a privately owned Section 8 housing complex. On October 7th, 2019, a little over a month after Hurricane Florence hit, nearly 700 residents were told that they would need to move out while repairs were taking place, and they had just 8 days to leave.
And that was the problem here, because a lot of places, Florence was the middle of September, but it wasn't until late October that some of these people got notices of vacation and eviction in November. So by then, the market was enveloped with not only people who needed places who had homeowners or other renters, but was also swamped with people who were down here working because of Florence. The contractors, the plumbers, the roofers. So it was a major crunch.
They were told that they would be put out for a minimum of 3 months. In June of 2019, 8 months later, little to no repairs were finished. The residents had received no word on when they could return, and it was reported that Market North's owners were looking to sell the property. This caused grave concern for the former residents of Market North as well as community activists, considering Market North's prime location and its neighboring apartment complexes. Market North is under 10 minutes away from UNCW and about 15 minutes away from downtown, making it prime real estate, especially when you consider that UNCW is expecting to get over 20,000 students within the next couple of years. In addition, Market North is currently situated next to Avalon Apartments, Progress Apartments, the Reserve at Forest Hill, and the Annex, all of them being luxury apartments, thus making Market North stick out, quote unquote, and be a viable candidate to be taken down and for a shiny new apartment complex to be placed in order to keep up the neighborhood's appeal. With Wilmington already suffering from a major affordable housing crisis, Florence brought the problem to a fever pitch. The former residents of Market North, like many low-income families, found little success in locating housing around the city. As such, they received vouchers for other properties owned by Market North's operators in other cities in North Carolina, such as Greensboro and Raleigh. And they are likely never coming back. Market North isn't the only community in Wilmington at risk of being gentrified. Areas such as the Glen and Gervais, also low-income housing, have dealt with the effects of Florence and are also primed to be gentrified. And for many of these areas, the storms are used to blame for the condition of the housing and the need for it to be upgraded, i.e. gentrified, when in reality, the storm merely revealed what was already there.
We still have not heard about the Glen, but whatever they do there, they need to first elevate it, because that place flooded constantly prior, always. You know, if you've been out there, it rained hard, you about swim through the streets.
On July 29th, Market North was indeed sold. Soon after it was bought, the property began seeing renovations in earnest. This past week, the Wilmington City Council approved up to $27 million worth of bonds for the rebuild of Market North, and spokesmen for the company stated that families would be moving back in around October and that the complex would remain affordable housing for the next 30 years. Despite this statement, many residents feel uneasy about whether this will remain true, and given Wilmington's history and particular relationship with gentrification, it makes sense.
Gentrification, unfortunately, is here to stay, because those who have will want to acquire more.
This statement rings hauntingly true for Wilmington. Whether 1898, 2018, natural disaster, or man-made catastrophe, rich, poor, or in between, Wilmington's permanent racial status seems to be one in which Black folks are constantly being moved out of their homes. No matter what happens with Market North or the next big hurricane, one thing is for sure. When it comes to race, whatever happens in Wilmington, North Carolina, will always make waves.